Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Mindset Mike. I am thrilled that you are here with me today because I am here with my friend Leen Madanat. Welcome to Mindset Mike. I am so happy that you're here.
I'm happy to be here.
This conversation has been, in the making for about 2 months now? And I was just so excited. I met Leen. You came to the Gutsy Behavior Run.
The first run.
And I still remember the moment that I saw you because, okay, funny enough, I've never met a Leen before. And then the first week that I was here, I met Leen. And then Leen introduced me to you.
Another Leen.
And so I see both Leens coming out of the subway, running, like, we're coming, we're here. And it was just, you had such a beautiful energy to you. And you were such a team player. You led us through exercises, and then we had bagels, and we just had a wonderful conversation. And as we went along from the Gutsy Behavior Run to the cool down, the transitioning into going into bagels and everything, I was like, I really want to get to know this person, and she's really, really awesome. And I just want to say thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Seriously, welcome. You are really big on fitness. You're a brilliant woman. You are world traveled, you are highly educated, you're a fine individual, and I feel like there are so many layers to your story. But I wanted to start off by asking you something that I love asking people around me. What is something gutsy that you've done in your life that has brought you to where you are today?
Oof, this is a tough one. But since we're here at Columbia University, I think it's only fair I tell you the story. And something super gutsy I did was I walked away from Columbia University after being admitted in undergrad. And this was an iconic story of knowing when to walk away to something that you've held on for a really long time.
Oh my God.
And it's really shocking. But throughout my high school, my dream school was Columbia University. And I had my college counselor, advised me not to apply directly to Columbia University. She didn't feel like I had, the things in my favor to get accepted or be able to afford coming to Columbia University. Mm-hmm. My parents thought I could do it, but she didn't, and I ended up not applying. But I found a way around it. I applied to a 3-2 program with Muhlenberg College in Pennsylvania, and it was 3 years of undergrad there, and then another 2 years of another bachelor degree at Columbia University School of Engineering.
Okay.
And at that point, I was 17, turning 18. I didn't know what I wanted, but I knew I wanted to be in New York. So I found my way through this program. I got admitted to the program. I spent 3 years in Pennsylvania. On the 4th year, I basically got the grades to be admitted to Columbia, and I got my acceptance letter. The first thing I did was send it back to her to show her that I was able to get it, despite her not believing I could, which was like an internal high five. And I got to New York, and I was sitting here in main campus, just a few streets away, at the medical center, waiting to take some sort of form, or I forget what it was, 4 or 5 years ago. And I just had this gut feeling that it wasn't the right time for me to be here.
Wow.
And it just sat so deep in me. I'm like, okay, you've done the necessary internships. At that time, my family had moved back to Dubai, so I knew that I wanted to go back there. I was in boarding school for high school. I was another 3 years living alone in Pennsylvania. I was away from my family for 7.5, 8 years.
Wow.
And I just wanted to go back home, because I knew my next milestone, I might not be at home.
Okay.
And so I sat there and I was like, I think you need to walk away from this. And at that time, I had already interned at amazing companies, global, Fortune 500 companies in Dubai. And I knew that if I applied there, I would get the job. So I called back my college in Pennsylvania. And it was a Friday and classes were starting on Monday. I was like, okay, so here it goes. I'm coming back, and I'm not going to do my second bachelor degree at Columbia. It's not the right time for me. I have a feeling I'm going to come back at some other point in my life. And my parents supported. They were amazing. They just supported my decision. They knew that if I made a decision based on my gut feeling, that truly I knew what was right for me.
Right.
So thankfully, Muhlenberg College welcomed me with open arms. I went back. I graduated early. It turned out I had enough credits to leave within a semester. Within 2 weeks of being in Dubai, I got my first job offer in data science. And then from there, my career kicked off. And fast forward 4 years later, I got into Columbia Business School. I'm with a firm that supported me coming to do my MBA. And I'm back. And I had no idea back then, if you were to tell me you were going to work in a really prestigious consulting company who was going to support you to come do your MBA, I literally wouldn't have believed you. But it happened that way because I knew when to let go of something that I held on so tightly. And that's how, I guess, I think that was the biggest, gutsiest thing I've done as I was getting into my adulthood. Wow.
That's an intense story.
Yeah.
Because I think that whenever we work so hard for something, we get so fixated on what's on the other side, and letting it go, it could be something about like, have I been wrong this whole time? Am I going to prove others right?
Yeah.
Like, there are so many factors that play a role in people's minds that make them stay even when they have a gut feeling that it's not right.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's the right moment now?
Now it's extremely the right moment. And when things just flow, it's like a puzzle, you know, things just come together and it works. And there's a concept in yoga that I always referred back to. It's called Sthira Sukha Asana, which is basically referring to with hardship comes ease. So basically you can fight for things, but then once you know you've done the work, you've pushed enough, you just let go. And then at that point of release is when things start to happen. And so I feel like I've pushed from high school up until graduating, during my 2-3 jobs, up until I got my last role at Kearney. And then I kept pushing and working so hard. And then I got to the point where I applied to Columbia and I knew moving to New York would be my next step. And I just let go. Like, now I think I've done the work and everything will just fall into place. And I just took a deep breath and I was like, just sit. Now, like, just be ready to receive. You don't have to keep pushing. And I think this is one of the concepts I really love about yoga. And I'm sure we'll get to talking about it.
Yes, of course.
That, you know, work hard up until you get to a point where you know you can release and sit back. And then the world will just give.
Yeah. I love that. It's such a beautiful concept. I've heard about that a lot. Not the nice phrase that you said, but Coach used to always say, the hay's in the barn. The work is done.
Exactly.
You know, and so I've lived with a more southern version of that. And so I can totally relate. And I do believe that once the work is done, just let go and just let everything flow. I mean, it's a combination of believing, but also just being able to receive, putting in the work, but just understanding that the universe has your back and everything always comes in perfect timing. And then here you are, and you're a prime example of that. So when it comes to yoga, I thought when I was, thinking about having this conversation with you that it could go one way. But then I want to take a few steps back because you made a post about being a professional swimmer. Please tell me what that was about, because come on, like that was just, I was looking at this like, she has never mentioned this. She acts so nonchalant. So tell me more about that, how that started and maybe how that has led into yoga.
It definitely started with my family.
Mm-hmm.
My parents have always pushed us to have some sort of active hobby during our childhood. And when we made the move from Jordan to Saudi, I was in grade 2. And Saudi is a very hot place.
Okay.
We lived in Jeddah, which is the beach city of Saudi. It's beautiful, but beautifully humid in the summer. So swimming was a nice activity. And we lived in a compound. It was like a gated community that was amazing for kids. And the first thing we thought about was swimming. And my parents were like, okay, if you want to do something, we're going to do it all in. I was like, okay. So me and my sister were signed up for the high school swim team.
Mm-hmm.
And we fell in love with it. For me, it was amazing because it provided, like, even at a young age, I loved that routine. It's like, for me, routine fuels me. Mm-hmm. So we started swim training and we would have practice every morning and every evening. And I swam from 2nd grade up until 8th grade. So it was a while. And we almost got to the Saudi Nationals. But then I moved back to Jordan for high school. And there I started track and field and stopped swimming because the team wasn't as strong where I was moving.
Uh-huh.
But swimming was a huge part of my childhood. Going back home after swim training and having to, guzzle down these huge milkshakes just so I can keep my calorie intake. Because we were burning a lot as kids, and you can see from the picture or the reel I posted, we were like shredded, me and my sister.
Oh yeah.
And then eventually when my brother was old enough, he's 5 years younger, he also joined the crew, and we were all swimmers for a very big portion of our childhood.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you think that it structured your mind and your work ethic in a certain way?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
There were days I really didn't want to wake up. Like, I was a child that just wanted to play, and then I had to sleep at 7 p.m. and wake up at 6 a.m. Because we needed more sleep, right? I was really young. and all I wanted to do was watch TV or stay up late, not wake up that early, skip the bus.
Be a kid.
Be a kid. But before school, we would have swim training. After school, we'd have swim training. After school, other kids were going to their friends' houses or watching a movie. But I had 2 hours of swim practice. And what that created was an insane bond with the people I was with. One of my best friends was also a swimmer with me. And to this day, we talk. And I think it just creates this, I don't know if it's consistency or routine, but more dedication to the practice, whatever it is you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So back then I was dedicated to swimming. Then I became dedicated to my career. And then I became dedicated to yoga. I've always been dedicated to family, but I learned that, being there for something, I learned that from swimming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where it started.
Yeah.
I always say, like, the tagline for Mindset Mike is becoming the optimal leader of your life. And I always focus on empowering people in and beyond sports. And I see that a lot of times people, when they don't have that mental structure, like you go through swimming, right? And it's supported your mind and in your ways, your routine, like you talk about it, like in such a natural way. Not everybody had that. And you've had the ability to translate that to other areas of your life. And many people finish that cycle and they just hit a wall and they don't know what to do next. And so I love to see that you've been able to translate it to other passions and you've been able to grow in other areas and it still always goes back. You talked about routine and it was so funny because you said, yes, I'll decide, as I'm packing for 6 a.m. And I said, oh my gosh, what does your morning routine look like?
My morning routine, well, it depends on how many hours I've slept that day.
Okay.
But usually I'm up before 7 a.m.
Okay.
9 out of 10 times I'm up before 7, and 9 out of 10 times I'm asleep before 11 p.m.
Okay.
If not, I'm either intentionally out late because I have an event, a dinner, a birthday, whatever it is, or I'm exhausted and I know that I need to take a break and I need to sleep. But my usual routine is to wake up around 6:30. Movement is the first thing I do, walking out of the house. But I like to wake up that early because I give myself that hour at home to sit down, ground. I have maybe breakfast or a cup of coffee. Usually I journal. I started this routine over a year ago after going on my first yoga retreat with one of my very close friends. And they founded an amazing company called Soul Search, which I'll share with you. And on this retreat, we learned a lot of daily practices that stuck with me.
Okay.
I started journaling in 2021, but when I went on this particular retreat earlier last year, it kind of struck me in that why did I lose that? And I started journaling on my first solo trip. I traveled alone solo for 10 days, and that's when I started journaling. And I knew that I just felt more connected and grounded to my day when I do it.
Okay.
So every morning when I wake up, I journal. I have my cup of water, my cup of coffee. I kind of ground if I need to pack any bags, if I'm showering at the gym and moving on to my day. I like to have that time to not rush out of the house. There are days when the alarm doesn't go off and I'm rushing, but I still get there. And that's my morning routine. And usually I work out or work in, if you want to be cheesy and talk about it that way. If it's yoga, it's a work in.
Okay.
It's either yoga or the gym. I try to still have like a holistic lifestyle in terms of weightlifting, running, and yoga.
Okay.
So I switch between those during the week, but usually one of them is part of my day.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yoga is a big part of who you are and how I've gotten to know you. I recently went to one of your classes with Lululemon, and I was just thrilled to be there. It was a little chaotic, as we've talked about it before, my getting there, but it was just, so for those who are listening and you don't know the story, I got there 10 minutes late. And I felt horrible, and I was just rushing, and it was raining, and I just showed up like a wet dog. And I'm coming in to through the entrance of the room, and I'm like mortified for this. And I go to the back and I put down my mat, and the whole time I felt so guilty for being late to your event. It was a really big deal for me to be there, to support you. And you're going through the class and everybody looks at peace. And then you say something and you're like, and if you just got here, take a time to ground yourself. And all of a sudden, I was having vertigo at that moment, and everything just kind of like paused. And I've been to yoga classes before, studios, and I've been the person who looks up yoga for runners, yoga for stretching on YouTube before. But I had never really had that sense of peace like immediately while being in complete chaos in my mind. And I just wanted to say thank you, first of all.
Touching.
And it really is exactly like the way that it happened. Like I've had yoga and I got a resort. Great, you wake up feeling like on a high. But this was like a very, transition from like polar opposites. From like chaos in my mind and in my body to absolute like just peace and just wholeness. And then the way that you made it challenging, like through the exercises, the movements, and it was like, oh, here we go again, and it felt so good. Where did this passion start from? Like, how has this connected from other areas of your life, and how does it connect to all that you do? You're so passionate about it. I can see like all that you're going to do. You're doing wonderful things in New York with this, and I'm just so happy to have experienced it. But like, where did it all stem from?
Only recently I made the connection, but thank you. Honestly, that's exactly why I do what I do. And every person who experiences yoga either for the first time or for the first time in a while with me, I just hope it sticks with them forever. And when I hear these stories, I'm like, this is exactly my purpose. And how it started, or how it connects, I guess, to other things in my life. In high school, I was on the side a contemporary dancer.
Okay. And you've done it all.
I just danced contemporary because that free-flowing feeling was something I was obsessed with.
Okay.
And this amazing dance teacher at my high school got me into contemporary dance. And it was just so amazing because it was like a moving meditation. And a couple of years ago, like 6 years ago, my mom took me to one of my first yoga classes after being an athlete. And I made fun of it. I was like, what is this? Like, I came for a workout and I didn't even sweat. Like, it doesn't make sense. And then I decided to back away from yoga. And then I went with a friend again a couple of years ago to a power vinyasa class, which was 90 minutes long. And it struck every chord. It was very similar to contemporary dance because we go into that flow, the same free flow feeling that you experienced in the class with me. And it's basically repeating the flow enough times that it becomes intuitive, that you no longer have to think about where your leg is going to go or where your arm is going to go. Your mind is just leading at that stage. And that level of flow is where you reach that movement meditation, and your mind kind of lets go of that effort and your body just guides you. And that's the ultimate, I would say, if you think of like a sinusoidal curve is what they call it, the peak of a class is there. Once you've reached that movement in the heart of the class where your brain doesn't really have to be so switched on, I can continue to guide, but even if I didn't, you would still flow.
That's what I felt.
And that for me is like how I achieve the best part of the yoga class. And to your question of how it connects, it just, for me, it helped me reach that state, that meditative state. And I became so obsessed with it. And when I first learned yoga, I didn't want to teach it. I just wanted to learn it to advance. So when I decided to do my certification, I did it for the purpose of me advancing my practice and learning more. I became more and more obsessed with it. But after finishing the 200-hour teacher training, it was so good that I couldn't keep it to myself. I was like, I have to share this with others.
Of course.
And that's how it started.
Oh my gosh. I love that. I mean, it's not I always knew I wanted to do yoga. I walked away and I made fun of it. And then life brought you back to it. And I will say, and I always keep it real. I have never really had that experience where I already know what to do. In a yoga setting, I'm always the person whose head is like
What's
tilted,
the person doing?
Or like I'm always trying to see what the instructor's doing. Like I'm always so lost. And this time I was like, I know what's next. And I'm actually going to challenge myself and go to this because she said that I could if it felt good. And it was just, and I did enter that. And so I see what you mean. And it was a different style of, a different experience that I've had before, that I've seen before. a lot of times it's just very, in the nicest way, it's you rely on the instructor.
Yeah.
And if you're new, like myself, you kind of lost. And this just kind of went. And I was at the very end, at the very back, and I didn't feel the need to look at anybody, and it was just going. And I'm so happy that you've had this. You're amazing at it.
Thank you.
You honestly, everybody was so happy. And then you gave these beautiful cards that it just, they were all, everybody got a different one. And mine was just about like not walking alone. And it just resonated and it connected. And it was a way of connecting it to my mindset. How do you feel that this has impacted your personal growth and like your mindset overall?
What was it exactly? Like affirmations or?
Yoga, your personal growth, your practice. How does it all connect? Because like for me, it's I feel like people sometimes think of different buckets in their life. Like this is my career, these are my relationships, and for my personal growth I'm going to read Think and Grow Rich, and then I'm going to do this and that. But in reality, I mean, it all kind of connects and it overlaps. And I'm curious to see how yoga has impacted your mindset and helped you pursue, for instance, now that you're doing your MBA at Columbia. Like, has there been a connection there?
A huge connection. Yoga has impacted every single part. And as cheesy as it sounds, everyone's going to say, oh, yoga impacted my life. I became more zen. I became more chill. It's not about that. It's about showing up and being present.
Yeah.
And for me, this was so hard because I was running around and moving around my whole life. I've lived in 4 countries growing up. Now my 5th. And it's always been like, who am I meeting next? What am I doing next? Where am I going to school? Where am I going to work? What am I doing on the weekend? Where am I traveling next month? And it's always move.
Something.
Even my job was me traveling on a weekly basis from Dubai to Saudi.
Yeah.
And once I got into yoga and really got into yoga, I noticed that even if you have a million things to do, you can still keep that inner harmony, that inner peace, because you are in control of that. And what it taught me is like immense self-control, control over my emotions, control over my mindset, control over how I react to things. That was my biggest one. I mean, I'm a Sagittarius and we're a fiery sign, and my whole life I was very reactive, and you can tell from my face. My face has like 6 different emotions at once, and I find it very hard to hide my emotions. And what yoga has taught me is that you don't really have to react to everything, No. Sometimes you just have to let it be, and I'm in control of how things make me feel. And this happens often. You have someone that, crosses you on the street, someone bumps your shoulder, someone, cranks the horn in their car, and you're like, this just ruined my day. Actually, no. They don't have the control to ruin your day. You can only ruin your day.
You don't give them that power.
And it gave me that power within me to say, I'm in control of how I feel. I'm in control of my happiness. I'm in control of my achievements. If something doesn't work out, it's not because someone didn't do it for me. It's because it wasn't meant for me. And if something did work out, it's because I worked hard to get there. Maybe there was some luck. Sometimes there's a charm, there's luck, there was whatever it is. But you've done enough work to know that you're going to control the outcome.
Yep.
We can't control everything in life, and things happen. Storms, something, doesn't work out, whatever it is, that we have to accept, right?
Yeah.
But the ultimate outcome is that I have control. It gave me that sense of confidence that regardless of what's happening outside, there's an inner me that's more calm and in control than anything else outside.
Yeah.
And it has impacted my personal life, has had, a big impact on my relationships with family and friends. It has also made a big impact on how I accept rejection. So I no longer think about it as someone not giving something, but more of me knowing that I have some other time in my life where I'm going to get it, etc.
Right.
So it's just a stronger belief in myself and my control.
I love it. I think it gives you a lot of clarity and inner peace and guidance. We had a funny experience when we grabbed a bagel the other day. And I always think of you, and what you're saying kind of takes me back to that. Remember when we were walking past that man who was asking for some food?
Yeah.
He was specifically asking for food. And I had a bag of mixed nuts and cranberries in my bag. And so I went back and gave it to him. And he goes, I ain't got no teeth. How do you want me to eat that? And I was like, well, surely you can crush it. And then he's like, how do you want me to crush it? I ain't got no teeth. But I'm sharing this because sometimes, you talk about, you are letting things flow, you put in the work and everything. But I think it also gives you working on yourself in the sense, whether it's through yoga or through running or through personal growth, reading a book, something that you do for yourself. It opens up your mind to the possibility of something happening. Exactly. Because sometimes the universe is going to send you all the signs. It's going to send you everything, like the manual, and you still won't put the pieces together because you're not in the right headspace. Exactly. And I think that it's something so valuable. And going back to your class, the experience that I had, it's something that I also had in that moment. I was able to receive in that moment. Everything's already done. The hay's in the barn. Yeah. And now you're just able to put your body and your mind at ease and see what comes next.
Yeah, exactly. And something I actually always do at the beginning of every class is I have everyone sit down like cross-legged and they have their like palms on their knees. I think you might have missed that beginning of the class.
I definitely did.
And I just asked them to like close their eyes and ground for like a couple of moments. And depending on how they feel in that moment, I ask them to either place their palms facing the sky if they're in a state of receipt, or their palms facing the ground towards their knees if there's a lot going on and they need to ground, they need to focus, kind of shed every little bit of noise around them away. And depending on like what state they're in that moment, you'll either find their palms up in the air or down, and then they start their breath work. And that just opens you to be in the state that your body wants to be in, either in a state of receipt and receptivity and openness, or it's not closed but more of grounding, because I need to be here now, I need to focus, there's a lot going on, there's a lot of moving parts, but I know I'm here. And that's what putting your palms down signifies. And this just starts off the practice in such a different way, because you're more aware of where your body and your mind want to be before you quickly jump into your downward dog or the movement. And that could signify quickly jumping into a meeting or quickly jumping into your flight or the bus or the car. Like, think, how do I feel? Is this the right thing? Okay, I'll jump in.
I love it.
Yeah.
Because you're able to bring a group of people together, but yet allow them to personalize it as they need.
Exactly. Which
you don't see with running.
No.
Right? You can personalize it, but it's very evident on where people are. Are you like this pace or are you that pace? Yeah. And with this, it's oh my God, that's really, I never thought about it like that. And I always wondered what the difference was, but I get it now. Yeah. I won't miss it next time.
There we go.
Oh my gosh. So when it comes to yoga, I know with my friends, I always have this idea of all that I see them accomplishing. But what do you want to accomplish? Like, where do you see this going?
Right now, I'm working on an idea of expanding what I do to a holistic well-being company.
Okay.
That I want to be able to package and provide my yoga classes within a larger experience. Uh-huh. I can't share too much right now, but it's what I'm working on. Okay. Because I truly believe that within my circle of people that I know and the bigger network behind that are people just like me who have had professional lives but also want to prioritize well-being. Mm-hmm. And I come from a space where I understand both. I've been a working professional. I've lived that hustle for 4 continuous years where I was working 9 to 9, sometimes 9 to 12, but at the same time I would wake up at 6 a.m. when I could and still try to do my morning routine. I would still try to work out. I would still try to teach yoga classes. And at some point I'm like, where is this balance? Like, how can I find this balance? Mm-hmm. And I found that through yoga. Yeah. And I also found out that other people also want to learn those, let's say, mindfulness practices or well-being practices, just some tips and tricks on how to guide themselves through their well-being journey. And I realized that I could provide more than just that yoga class. So I'm working on expanding to provide an experience for people just like me who are in the professional field but also want to understand and know well-being more. And I kind of sit at the crux of that.
I love that. I can't wait to watch you do it. We're so aligned in that because I'm after running in college, you kind of come to understand that life isn't all sunshine and rainbows, and people have studied so hard and they've gotten, masters and PhDs and all of this to enter a career, and then they still don't feel fully fulfilled. And you see it a lot in the US.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what can we do, and how can we support them to feel that fulfillment, and for them to feel fulfilled, like when they go into the office, and it's not this transactional paycheck for time, but it's more so like I'm, getting something from it, and that's a whole different thing. But yeah, I definitely see the need for that, and I'm so happy that you're thinking about that.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be phenomenal. I think more people need to hear it, and for somebody who has been in multiple industries and realms and has lived around the world and all of that, it's just important.
The next step.
How can people connect with you? How can people support you in your journey, learn from you? Maybe they're not in New York, maybe they're elsewhere. Where can they find you?
So right now I don't provide classes online.
Okay.
But I am on Instagram, and I'll be sharing more updates on Instagram, and that's my main place.
Okay.
Hopefully soon I'll have my website. And then the experiences that I will launch probably early next year.
Oh, that's so exciting. All the information is going to be down below, and any updates that you have, you can share, and we're updated. So
Deal.
it'll be ready. And I have one last question for you. If there's somebody who's out there listening, oh my gosh, she's so cool. I mean, she's done it all, and I'm not like that. I would love to do this one thing that is just so clear in my mind, but I just don't feel very brave and gutsy to do it. What would you tell them to help them take that leap?
I would tell them that I feel like that every day. Every day I wake up and I think, okay, I haven't done this. I'm not good enough. But what I remember is that there's someone else out there doing it anyway. So why should I be the person to sit back? Because if you don't do it, somebody else will. And do you want somebody else to do it instead of you? Someone else is going to do it. You might as well. And what's the only difference between you and that other person is the fact that they had that urge. I would call it an urge. It's like getting out of bed in the morning or stopping that alarm. That urge to just go ahead. And how do I do that? How do I get over the self-doubt in the morning, whatever it is? I just choose a small milestone, a little one. For example, if I am planning for my next collaboration with a big brand, the one thing I can do is go visit that place. Meet one person. And then from there, things will happen. You don't have to plan that whole first product or class or event from the first get-go. It's just one introduction. That'll be your success for today. Choose that small step. And for me, it's small wins. The small wins matter way more than the biggest wins. And the accumulation of small wins will get you much farther than one leap, and then you get stuck for a decade. Yeah. So my biggest advice would be start small, overcome that urge, push yourself to do it for something very small. And that little small achievement will feel like a huge achievement once it's done, because it will only propel you further. It will be kind of like a Kickstarter. And about self-doubt, everyone feels it. I feel it every day. But it's about believing in yourself and believing that you matter as much as anybody else out there that's doing it. And other people will look up to you as a result. So
I love it. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was so special. And I receive it because it hits home. I think it hits home on many levels to many people. I think that we all have that one thing that it's like, okay, now. And we need to hear these words. So thank you.
Exactly. You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course. For those of you listening, don't forget to share this episode with somebody you care about and want to see succeed. Don't forget to keep being the optimal leader of your life. I love you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.